Okay, so we are live. I just wanted to thank anyone who is currently here or anybody who perhaps watches later. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching this. We are from Digital Creator North. My name is Rebecca. I am the programming research facilitator, one of two. Our colleague Tyler is the person behind the screen right now. So if you have any questions or are concerned, they will be there just watching the chat, seeing how things are going. But yeah, so we are doing a little series called the Emerging Tech Talks, where we will each be sort of going over something about emerging tech or a tech that was previously emerging that we feel like really passionate about and we think is really cool. So I did just want to take a moment to introduce our wonderful artist in residence, Heran, at your daughter. Yeah, she's here today to talk about AI. So I'm just going to focus over on her now.
Thank you, Rebecca.
No worries.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming through. Whatever time you ended up meeting me here in this digital space. I am the artist in residence / intern here at Digital Creator North. And for the first of a few emerging tech talks, I decided to talk a bit about artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AI, and what I've learned about AI ethics over the last few years. I'll be honest, since in 2019, I kind of began this journey through, it was a bit by chance or by mistake, but I was pretty much part of a design incubator, and there were a few opportunities on the table. One of them was called AI Game. Another one, I don't know, the rest of the titles didn't seem as exciting. Obviously, anything with game in it sounded cool, so I signed up for it, and to be honest, this was like literally maybe the beginning, March 2019. I didn't even know for sure what AI stood for. I thought like automated something, I don't know, augmented something. No, that's AR. But it's pretty cool. I'm just sharing this because it was through designing a game for other artists to be able to understand what artificial intelligence is and what the implications are in our everyday lives. Like, how do you design a game to explain that experience? And it's specifically the idea of designing a game is really cool because it gives you this embodied experience where you kind of get to be a player in the whole sort of mix of things. And so I'll just share a quick 60-second little mini vlog I did of the team and I working on that in 2019. So a little bit of a narration about what that game was. Ended up traveling throughout Canada in 13, I think almost 13 different cities, artist-run centers and stuff. But let's just play that. Okay.
Sweet.
So the intention here is just to give you an opportunity to understand in an embodied sense some of the questions, considerations, opportunities around AI. Obviously, this isn't intended to be a complete picture, mainly because we don't know what a complete picture will look like, but hopefully it will generate some understanding and some questions, because a lot of people, I'm sure, here don't feel comfortable having a conversation about AI, and this will hopefully give us some way into that conversation.
You are in agreement?
Alright, you guys ready?
I'm at 14, 13, 12.
All right. So yeah, that was kind of, so the game design was a prototype. Those papers and stuff, like they're now cards and stuff. But anyways, that was like the beginning of my journey with artificial intelligence and understanding it, and like in the narration side, like what are the implications? Kind of like we're attempting to answer like, so what? Like, why should anyone care about AI? Like, why should artists and like everyday people sort of like care about doing anything about AI, but for me, I like to usually start with where we experience AI in our everyday lives and stuff. I'll share my screen again. Okay. So, actually, I wanted to say first that there's a movie available, or film available on Netflix called Coded Bias by a director named Shalini Kantaya. And it's really cool. It's a really excellent introduction to artificial intelligence, ethics. So actually, I wanted to like use a lot of notes from just that, and also reference a few books and stuff. But we'll start with like what I mean. Here, let me do this. Like these two words, like let's just start with defining things: artificial and intelligence. Like, what does intelligence mean to you? Like, what comes to mind when you think of the word intelligence? What do you relate it to? For me, I do think of like nature, plants, like animals, our brains, and like those like neural networks and stuff. I've like learned a tiny bit about that recently. And also, like when you think of intelligence, like what is it not? It's not as simple as like a system. Because I started thinking like, okay, a car engine, like you look into the hood of a car, it's like, is this intelligence or is it just a system? And I think the defining factor for intelligence is that it can begin to teach itself. So that's a really crucial part of the difference between just a system and intelligence. And then when we think of the word artificial, it's like, I don't know, I think of like artificial like sweetener, like in juice or something. I don't know why, but I think of like unnatural, I think of man-made, I think of like synthetic. I just pretty much think of like human bias has like a hand in it, or like a human perspective has a bit of a influence over it. So it's like something with human influence that can teach itself. Like that's like artificial intelligence. We'll get into it and break down other words we use to like describe that, because there are pros and cons to what the outputs are if society is based on and ran by artificial intelligence. So what I had learned was the idea of artificial intelligence was thought of by like literally a group of older, honestly white men who came together at Dartmouth Math Department in the United States, I think like New Hampshire or something, in 1956. Kind of define and like they wanted to create some kind of intelligence using like early like computer sort of science systems that existed at the time. And they decided to basically define intelligence through playing games, and like the ability to like succeed in playing games, and they used the game of chess. So I don't know if you've ever tried to like create a new game, or say an icebreaker, or if you have to like come to a class or community group and like design a game or something. But it's really interesting like how to structure a kind of game or a design where like you have to consider all of the possible things that are going to come in and what can come out and when they're mixed. So it's interesting, like of all things, chess is like specifically the game of intelligence they chose. I even went on like Google just to see, like I found this like PDF of one of the original sort of proposals, August 31st, 1995. Can you see my screen still?
Yeah. This is super cool.
Okay, cool. So just like in like this kind of table of contents sort of thing that they were putting together is like automatic computers. How can a computer be programmed to use a language? Neuron nets. Theory of the size of a calculation. Self-improvement. See, it's like aspect of being able to teach itself. It says here, probably a truly intelligent machine will carry out activities which may best be described as self-improvement.
Wow, and this was 1956?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh
it's the
my God.
proposal 55, I guess. But randomness and creativity. This was something I picked up just through the film and like learning about AI high level. But there always is this mention of like, I think what they call like a black box, like a potential outcome in this system that's completely like humans just will not be able to like understand why it came out that way. But it says here, a fairly attractive and yet clearly incomplete conjecture is that the difference between creative thinking and unimaginative competent thinking lies in the injection of some randomness. Anyways, I just wanted to keep it like high level there, but that's super. It's for me, it's like a seed of either hope or a seed of like doom, because we never know who is receiving the consequences of those final outcomes that could be completely like humans know we can't understand it, and so that kind of helps make AI this like authority when no one even understands why. But that's for most results of AI already. Anyway, so to define an algorithm, basically using historical information to make a prediction about the future. That's said by Kathy O'Neill in the film. And AI comes up in so many different places. So essentially it's like, so in this definition, I say using historical info, but really another way of saying that is data sets. And I'm sure you've heard over the last few years a whole bunch of hype and tension over the use of data, collecting data, stealing data. Like, data is so key. I mean, it was even considered like a form of currency because of how powerful huge sets of data can be, and not just like on their own, like pile of data sets. Like, no, it's the fact that machine learning, which is real like close to interchange, you could use that word interchangeably with AI. It's more of like the technical function of artificial intelligence. Machine learning, it's basically, again, that form of like, it's like a form of coding, which is an intelligence that will teach itself. So you feed it huge sets of data. For example, like where can we get huge sets of data? Like faces on the internet. So if you feed a machine learning sort of model, let's say like millions of faces that were scraped off the internet for free, like accessible data sets, and then start plugging in like, I mean, this actually did happen. I think a lot of facial recognition software are studying our faces and our features and our emotions attached to those features based on a whole bunch of like like a huge list of celebrities from 2007 or something.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, very specific. It's a very specific type and group of data that's training an artificial intelligence to study us and then to tell us about ourselves. So I wanted to share, there's this person named Noah Levinson, and he's like a pretty cool designer, artist in the AI ethics space, and he designed this game. So he actually coded a facial recognition sort of software to read our faces and tell us what it's making assumptions about. So turned that into a website, and it's called Stealing Your Feelings. So it's this one right here. I just want to give like a disclaimer that if you are not, I mean, it's not even about being familiar with AI or not. One of the fundamental issues of artificial intelligence is, especially for young people and stuff, is that it tells you about yourself in ways that you may not have kind of concluded about yourself, like, or things that are not fixed. For example, like sexuality, or for example, in this experience, it tells you whether or not you like Kanye West. It tells you whether or not you like dogs. That's an example I'll show you just now. Goes a little deeper. So it tells you what gender you're most likely interested in, So if these are questions that you don't want a computer telling you about yourself, I recommend not to try it. So that's just a disclaimer. Because it's really surprising how much you question yourself when a computer AI tells you about yourself. It also ends up telling you what your average income is going to be in the future. And these
Oh
are all
God.
based on how your face reacted to this 6 minute long video.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, let me just get to it and share.
I don't want to know that for myself.
Yeah, it's really it's invasive, and that's really the point of this video.
Meet the new AI that knows you better than you know yourself. Written, directed, and programmed by Noah Levinson. Stealing your feelings. Click Smiley to start.
Three, two, one. Tech quiz. What do Facebook, Apple, and Google all have in common? Yes, they are all good companies who are doing the best things. But there's another fact that's even more exciting. And the best way to reveal it is to reveal a fact about you. You don't like dogs. Surprise! We've been watching you back. Introducing facial emotion recognition, a new kind of artificial intelligence that decides how you feel just by looking at your face.
That's true.
It's all
So that was my reaction to whether or not I like dogs.
Do you like dogs, Heran?
Ew, I've been asking for a dog my entire life. But,
It's very meta. It's like, do you actually like dogs or do you like the idea
Yeah.
of a dog?
exactly. This questioning of self is like that's way too powerful. If someone just said something to you, okay, you might question yourself for a day or two, but when it's artificial intelligence, there's a subtle kind of authority it holds over truth or knowledge. And whether or not we believe it about ourselves, the companies or entities buying this data are taking it as facts. So it's like only a matter of time whether or not, you know, the let's say advertising companies, like it's only a matter of time before we know if they were right or not. Like, gosh, I guess I don't like dogs. Like I might find out one day. I don't know. If I'm targeted correctly, I don't know. But let me get back to. Am I still on screen share?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, that's facial recognition, and I think I wanted to share this in November or late October. Facebook has been under pressure for a while about taking down their facial recognition software, because I mean Snapchat is also pretty infamously guilty of selling facial recognition software to like big institutions and stuff. But eventually they in November this year they had announced that they not only deleted all of the data they had of facial like faces and like all that data, but they completely like disband, like took out the software and everything. And to like the whole ethics industry, this was like a huge announcement. Like everyone was like super happy. All that pressure kind of finally did something for an entity as big as Facebook to like take down such a huge and powerful software. But for me, you know, I sat with that for a bit and I thought, you know, of all the kinds of ways to collect data, facial recognition is definitely the most like visceral, like obvious, the most like that is what's going to get people to react and like revolt, or like that can get people to realize like it's just like it's one of the really powerful forms of artificial intelligence that feels invasive, that feels like it can get people to like stand up and like act against, you know, these the selling of this data and stuff. It's like, oh, it's my face, like it's my so I feel like I don't know, personally I think it was a bit strategic to like completely take that out, because our it's not only like our faces like through video and stuff and photos that are online, but, like our behavior, like so much of our behavior exists online. And I wanted to share, like, this is kind of cool, but I had learned that, you know, when you just press shuffle on your music app,
Yes.
that's obviously like an artificial intelligence thing. It's not actually
is
just
it?
like, yes. So
No.
yeah, it's not just shuffle. I noticed this first. I had this like thought first once when I think there were 2 days. And I don't really do shuffle, but there was a sunny day, and the next day it was like raining. But those 2 days, for some reason, 2 days back to back, I used shuffle on my phone when I was driving like quite a long distance, and I noticed the types of songs it was playing, and it felt like it was trying to appeal to my weather,
Oh my
the weather,
goodness.
like happy go lucky, whatever. And I was like, imagine, like, I know that my phone can detect weather. I wonder if like that piece of data is like being read by like my music app, and then like trying to just like help make me enjoy the song better, so I stay on the app and then it's working for me or whatever. Um, Anyways, long story short, I ended up hearing that there's something called, like, there's like a twin feature where, so this is nothing like, it doesn't have to do with weather, but let's say you're someone that likes a certain genre, like let's just say I'm listening to like hip hop, or like let's say I'm listening to like, yeah, hip hop. I listen to one, I don't know, a whole Jay-Z album, and then there's someone else in the world on that same app that has also listened to that whole Jay-Z album. And let's say that they had done it 10 minutes before me, and the next song that they actively chose was like Drake, started from the bottom. Well, because the algorithm is assuming that like our behaviors are twinning right now, it assumes that I would also probably like to hear Drake started from the bottom after listening to the whole Jay-Z album. So that's what
wild.
it's gonna suggest to me next. So that this is kind of like how, like, just understanding like how machine learning works, and like there's different ways to go about it, from a technical point of view. That one's like seems kind of cool and interesting, but I don't know if you're like a minority using an app or something, or someone that just has like eclectic taste or something. The norm is that it's gonna be what most people are listening to in a row, or like that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you want. So it kind of helps create this like mainstream experience, which like isn't necessary, continues to marginalize people, especially those that are already marginalized. It's these systemic sort of barriers that are re-existing in the AI world, which is obviously taking over our services work. It's even, again, it's using historical information to make a prediction about the future. Also, the fact that like algorithmic decisions override like the discernment of humans. This is funny, but many years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I had this like experience at the bank. I think I'd just come back from traveling like a really long trip, but I basically went to I think I had an insufficient fund fee or something. I went in just to like beg them to give it back to me, and I think I had one of these a year ago as well. So one insufficient fund fee a year ago, and another one. Imagine I get those once a year. Just imagine. I went in to just be like to reclaim it and be like, help me out here.
Please, yeah.
And they were just doing stuff at the system or whatever. And I guess they ended up sharing with me that it was an algorithm that told them not like to make the decision whether or not to return the 45.
What?
And like, yeah. And so the person went and like talked to their boss or whatever. Their boss was like too busy, so they didn't even they couldn't even handle it. And the teller that I was with was kind of like I was just looking at him like he was just stuck, like he didn't know what to do. He didn't override it. His boss also didn't have time to override it. So for me at that time, it was obviously devastating and super annoying. I'm like
totally.
How is $45 to a bank? Like,
please, yeah, come on.
Yeah. And so I like, but then again, who knows? Like, I don't know what else it was like, what other bits of information or my history was studying to like tell to prove that.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is like a really great example though of it having very concrete, like, real world, tangible, physical kind of repercussions there, right?
Exactly. That was like a felt embodied experience of being on the kind of crappy end of AI and stuff. So that's just, I just share that as an example of like how this exists in the real world and
That's
stuff.
a great example. Because I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. Another thing earlier on, like Snapchat, they've improved greatly over the last couple of years. A lot of social media and recording platforms have improved in this, but AR filters weren't working well on like people of color, dark complexities, because the AI, I mean the tools were trained on people with fairer skin. So it's like just like it's not seeing a human being when there's like a darker skinned person there, and so again it's marginalizing. Like for some reason it's excluding the same marginalized groups, over and over. And of course these are like worrisome implications for the future, especially if we know that these results are going to be like authority, like inarguable, and all like almost all institutions and different levels of like society, whether it's health, education, are using artificial intelligence to produce results, and are again this replacing human discernment.
Yes. Yeah, I got in like an argument with someone, like an argument. I'm using quotes here, but like kind of about like they were saying that if we put robots or AI in charge of the judicial system, that would eliminate any kinds of like bias or like, and that it would make the most equitable decisions because it's not a human and it doesn't have like normal human bias. And like my argument was that like, yes, it does. Like, who do you think trained this and who do you think created this, right?
Precisely. That's exactly. So in the game we designed, so there are 3 like situations that you can like enter into, or like levels, whatever. One of them is about surveillance, and that ties right into the judicial system, because I mean AI is already being used by judges and stuff. But again, like it's the data sets that are racist and biased historically.
Yes.
AI isn't like, let me like look at this fresh group of society and make all these assumptions. It's like it needs to study vast amounts of information. And as we know, especially when we think about documenting forms of documentation and archived history, it's always like very, very biased. And so if the data sets are studying that, then it's just going to take the position of those that created all of those problematic sets of data. Like, how have you produced an over representation of, say, like Black people in jail or something? It's like a data set's just going to study that and then take that as truth, and then now as it's like observing, it's giving you answers based on that. So
totally.
This affects people's lives, and I know a lot of folks think like I have nothing to hide, like I don't care if it sees my face or whatever. It's not really so much about that. It's like the challenge is to think further, like what are the greater implications, and also from an ethical point of view, like just because you're someone that feels like they're not in danger, like does that mean like that's how society should be?
Yeah,
like,
that's so much like such a stance of extreme privilege there.
Exactly. And I think it's creating like it's defining like groups of privilege and stuff like that. But what's cool is that there kind of is an industry and like a huge global network has been working for a while on trying to get awareness out about, again, implications of AI. And of course, nobody wants to, not nobody, some people do, but it's not ideal to frame it as like a dystopian kind of future. Like we're all doomed. But Hollywood's done a good job of like showcasing what like doom looks like in the most extreme version. That's like with robots and it turns on us. And there's so many questions to ask. Like, can AI, like, or bots, even like chat bots in these rooms and stuff.
Yeah, I always get this like weird, kind of like paranoid and completely like not founded, just like paranoia that our Discord bot on Digital Creator, a little plug to Digital Creator's Discord, we have that, and we have a little bot that we set up called Carl, who's someone made it, and we are able to use it in our Discord, but I'm just like, I hope Carl never becomes sentient, and I hope Carl never like locks me out of my Discord, you know?
Like, it's so interesting how that thought, like, we actually consider these things like a living thing. Like, I don't know, it's really interesting. What happened recently in news was that, Alexa,
Yeah.
the Alexa tool, whatever you call it, it so I guess a little kid was like, there's like a feature where you can do like ask it to give you challenges. I think it's for kids or whatever. Like, Alexa, give me a challenge. And this time, Alexa was documented saying, telling like a 3-year-old to put a fork
Oh my god, yeah.
open an electric socket and stuff. Like that's bizarre and like uniquely
So scary.
experience that like we like like that's like a thing that you don't want. Like plugs are dangerous for kids. So anyways, again, it kind of reminded me of that black box thing. Like how did the company not like get like how did the company like let that slip? It's just like the intelligence is profound.
Yeah.
And they're like probably like having to go deep and look into like how that possibly happened. But anyways.
No, that is what I mean. On the other kind of side of Alexa, a very good friend of mine got one, and they have a stutter, and so they were like trying to use it, and it just was not working for them. But then eventually it like actually learned their speech patterns and was able to be used. It's like so unfortunate and like such a major fail that the accessibility wasn't up to par upon first using it, but eventually it did like adjust and is usable now.
Wow, that's interesting. The adjustment part's interesting. I feel like that had to have been built in, but I don't know.
Yeah, it must be like, I mean, I was thinking it was some sort of AI kind of vibe.
Yeah, for sure. Like, they must have done something where it was like, if speech doesn't come out like the way expected, then it could be this. So study this person's speech over this amount of time. And I don't know, I don't know, like, that's really interesting. So your friend is also probably getting a bunch of advertisements based off conversations that were happening near in Alexa, because obviously those things, voice recognition software is another version.
Yeah.
AI, and like it studies, and captures words you're saying, just like dictation on your phone. If you want to send a text message, you hit that little mic button and like say it. Or sometimes they can like read things out loud to you, like text to speech, speech to text. That relationship's already there. So
yeah, I think that's why it's so important to like actually read like what they're going to be doing with this data. And I'm so guilty of never doing that. I'm like, I have a Google Home and I don't know what it's doing.
I mean, I think the same. I'm saying the same because of like terms. That's terms and agreements, which no one like really goes through.
No, we need to revamp those for sure.
I have started just skimming and like reading like at least the titles or like the contents, just to like, I don't know. I always just feel like if something like super silly in it, I want to make sure I caught it.
No, good. We should all take this moment to remember to be more like Heran. This is a public service announcement to read your terms and services, or at least skim.
I just scan, like, know what it's about, like, what do they cover, like, there's some things you never even think of, and it's cool to kind of know. So anyway, let's see, is my screen sharing on or no?
Yep, it's back on.
So yeah, as I was saying, these black box thing, these errors we don't really understand. So I learned about those black box things from that concept from the Coded Bias film, and this example that this this is like this award-winning teacher at this, I think, middle school, and he helps students that are like newcomers or English is not their first language and stuff. And so he won like several awards in the past, but there was this new test and implementation of like an AI, like the school wanted to like find out like who their best teachers were or hire and fire based on the results of AI on their teachers. And he got like really poor results. And like he was explaining in the film, like that, you know, he actually had a moment where he doubted himself, when he's been like teaching for over a decade, and like he knows he's changed lives, and like his, you know, lived experience is like completely disqualified, to the point that, you know, through this quick little AI thing, like they couldn't even also explain and justify why he got those results. So that's the other thing, is we're still humans using this technology, like within, let's say, a community setting. Like if you're going to listen to an AI, like how are you going to justify to human if you don't even understand sort of like what the results are and stuff. And that's the case like people using AI in spaces that they're like the industry itself is not well versed, or people aren't trained to really understand whether they're using it or being facing consequences based on it and stuff. It's kind of like the wild, wild west with AI, as it was, you know, the internet at some point, like kind of a bit of a free for all. And there do come like consequently, like the kid with the fork and the plug in the wall, like what, like it's not fair to say like, oops, like this is one of our like mistakes in the journey of building AI. Like no, like that's not okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of activism in, you know, in this AI space. Again, it's called like, it's the AI ethics space. It's like whether it's different countries, there's different levels, whether it's national. So in UK, they have something called the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. It's like an org that kind of fights and like brings awareness and demands that the public has access to data, and some decisions are based on like where that data can and can't go and stuff. So that's UK. There's something called Algorithmic Justice League in the United States. There's University of British Columbia has something called JEDI, the Center for Artificial Intelligence Decision Making and Action. Or more specifically, like KIDA. The JEDI is like, they have like a whole, kind of like our emerging tech talks. They have like a wider umbrella on such topics.
Cool.
I wanted to mention, like, just visually, kind of thought this was like a really interesting part about like kind of fighting against AI. So in the example in the film, I believe this is in China, where AI and like society is very much so living with AI. I think someone described it as it's algorithmic obedience training. So everything is connected to your phone and ratings, and you know, you're tracked pretty much everywhere you go and stuff. Like there's even social ratings and stuff like that. So anyways, in the film, I thought this was really interesting, but just from like an aesthetic point of view, but also I always kind of think about things like spatially. But these are like these like laser pointers and from that are being pointed at security surveillance, like those like surveillance cameras, just to like mess up the trackers. So it's like folks found out that they can like disorient or distort the images by like pointing lasers at them. So it's like this scene with like all these like laser pointers. It kind of,
wow.
Yeah, I mentioned it looks like a scene from like a future dystopia or whatever.
It does.
And it's like such an interesting form of activism. Like it's not, I'm not saying like this isn't necessarily to be compared, but kind of like the idea of like guns or something. It's like things are shooting from different spaces, but it's like it's like lasers and stuff. like being able to try to protect yourself from far with a device is interesting, as it when you compare that to folks that were like climbing up to these surveillance cameras and like spray painting them black. Like
Wow.
it both serves the same purpose, but I feel like in terms of like activism and how people are using their physical bodies, it's like what one seems more like physically risky than the other. I mean, this isn't like to judge any either form of protest, but I don't know. I just always think of like protest and activism as like some form of like how humans are like putting their bodies on the line, their lives on the line, and kind of go forward in society. Our lives and our movements are like kind of happening a lot more in digital and immersive spaces. It's like we don't really go into work anymore, go into that much. It's like I don't know. It's just a kind of side adjacent like thing to think about.
Totally.
Like, is this what kind of war and protest looks like in the future? Like, I don't know. It's scary. It's scary. Yeah, but what else? Okay. Oh, it's a bit more. There are. Before we go into like some of the good stuff, I wanted to share like a few really great books and authors. Safia Moja Noble wrote Algorithms of Oppression. I read this maybe early 2020. This really goes into, helps you understand, like, in just like Google search results alone, like how much bias there is in that. Like, imagine searching something generic, like puppies, like, everyone's results don't come up the same, right? Why do you get the results you get, and why are the top results at the top? I mean, like, forget like advertising, like paid spots and stuff, like just like what the algorithm is producing for you, like who is this for? Automating Inequality is another book. Twitter and Tear Gas is another book. Weapons of Math Destruction, I literally have that in my audiobook list right now.
Cool.
And Artificial Unintelligence. Yeah, I just wanted to share some more resources and stuff.
Sweet.
And now, of course, so I don't actually know too much about this, but in the health sector, how AI is being used to, I don't know, like either enable doctors to do like, let's say, surgery and stuff, or maybe doing surgery more precisely than like a doctor's hands. Like, I don't know in what ways like it's enabling like the doctors and stuff, but we do know AI is being used in the healthcare sector. I'm kind of curious about like how that is playing out. I know it was like one of the leading and like most fast-paced growing AI industries.
Cool.
But I wanted to like talk a little bit about how folks are kind of creating more engaging experiences and more hands-on experiences for folks to kind of like level biased data sets. So I wanted to share, for example, there's to combat, the climate crisis. There's this site called This Climate Does Not Exist. And this is like based on this idea, like, it's out of sight, out of mind, like people don't see anything wrong with the environment where they live, so they don't care, like they just can't be bothered to care about it. So what this website does is it uses artificial intelligence to like, you basically plug in your address, and it uses AI, like a generative, like it's like generative art. It uses AI to like recreate things. So basically it uses like your current home, or you pick whatever location that's like has an attachment to you as a person, and it then makes you visualize like what it would look like for your house to be in a flood, or to be like in a sandstorm or whatever. Let's see. Well, you all know my address now. Launch the visualization. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I could do smog, wildfire, or flood. Oh.
However will you choose? I'm like, they all sound terrible.
Well, that's not me. Visualization. Oh my gosh, this is my house. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, this is like what a flood would look like. Like I'm literally sitting right there right now.
Oh my god.
And then this would be smog.
Okay, that's wild. That's some super powerful stuff. We're definitely gonna have to like share this on our Instagram afterwards.
So that's one example. Also, that the stealing your feelings thing, again, considering the disclaimer, is really a powerful way to like understand how AI makes assumptions about you.
Yeah. Have you ever been on thispersondoesnotexist.com?
No.
So it's like this, that they use like generative something and they create a person that does not exist. Maybe it's, yeah. And so this isn't a real person. This is just someone who's been like, and if you look really closely, you can find like little examples. And then, yeah, there's the like, don't panic, here's how it works kind of thing. But I know about this because I was listening to a podcast and it was talking about people who are like, who create anonymous accounts on Twitter to like troll people. And very often they'll use one of these images as their profile photo so that they seem like a real person, but they're like not. But if you look like really closely at like, sometimes the ears are weird. So like when you refresh, it does a new person. Yeah, and so if you look closely at like certain parts, you can like kind of start to see where it's going wrong. But sometimes they're like so accurate. Like you can't tell me that this is not a real person. Like I'm almost thinking like you're lying and you're just taking these photos. But every now and then you'll get one that's just like off enough for you to know that it was like a generative artwork, essentially.
With like bigger pixel breaks or whatever. But yeah, this is so intense. Oh my gosh. It's hard. I just can't believe that this is not a real person.
Right?
Really like emotionally like connect with this human being. Like they're not even real.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really cool. I actually feel like that's what the environmental one is like a riff off of.
Like, cool.
This person does not exist, this climate does not exist. Wow, thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
No worries.
I mean, funny, it's like a Black woman, because the next thing I'm gonna put up is, so this is another sort of experience, and what they're trying to do is get folks to, I guess it's for Black people that have Black hairstyles, for, like, it's trying to develop like a significant set of data on different like hairstyles, like braids and just like, I don't know, like literally afros, half braids, whatever. Tries to like get these data sets, get photos, get videos, so that it can like teach an AI to like interpret and understand it. I mean, it's not gonna do anything for me right now. I also have another feature on, but essentially that's like one way of like, combating, not combating, but kind of do something about biased sets of data that already exist in the world.
Yeah.
There's another example called hair art. I mean, same concept, but it basically, you just input, there's like 3 lines, and you have to give your own descriptor of the word woman. Is like, yeah, it's just trying to create new, study new sets of like descriptors, because it's like male gaze is what has dominated internet and descriptors for what quote unquote woman is.
Totally.
AI understands through a male gaze. So
yeah. No, I was on Twitter. I mean, I'm giving a lot of examples of me just like being on the internet here, which is so telling. But you know Hank Green. Like John Green wrote like The Fault in Our Stars and all of these
Okay, like a director.
books. And Hank Green is also an author, but is like well known on TikTok for being like a science guy and just like does. They were the creators of what's that YouTube conference? I don't know. Anyways, there's like a big conference. But anyways, he's an author and he was writing a book, and one of his female characters, and he's even like making fun of himself for this, so it's like totally fine. But in it, he like describes the female protagonist as like catching her boob in a door, like accidentally closing a door on her boob, and I'm like, that never happens. I'm like, that is, if AI is using this to learn about what a woman does, I'm sure that someone has caught their boob in a door before, but it's like Hank Green, like,
yeah. Wait, this is something Hank wrote in a book?
Yeah, like this is something that like a male author who does not, Hank Green does not have breasts, who like wrote about his female protagonist. Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, even like on my Instagram feed, I see so many like 3D artists and stuff, and I immediately know when there's like a certain sculpted like avatar, like femme-looking avatar. Like I know when a man did it. Like I just know, like so uncreative. Like just really.
So I love that idea of someone putting like other written examples of like of that experience.
True.
You know, kind of to correct that wrong. It's cool. It's cool that there are these kind of like counter strikes almost.
Exactly. It's like this AI thing like needs to be fed like a healthy and even, you know, correct amount of like food to be able to like process properly.
Yeah.
It's being biased, and then what it's producing has so much power. It's like, no.
Yeah. It's like feeding a sourdough starter. You've gotta give it what it needs.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, so AI, ethics. Right now the kind of groups dominating the ethics space. How I think about the ethics space is kind of like the United Nations. Like it's a decently funded industry that's whose goal it is to kind of create peace and you know define what ethics looks like, define what ethics looks like in the future or in these new technologies and systems and stuff. But there are some gaps to me. So it's dominated by like the academic space and also the tech industry kind of, and then like government bodies like are funding a lot of this stuff as well. And then there's like these tech companies that are the ones kind of like the ones using and like really creating like profiting and just like adding to their bottom line, using AI in like innovative ways without real repercussions for mistakes and stuff. And so I think what's missing from the whole mix and the conversation, because I've attended probably at least 10 different AI related workshops, AI ethics workshops. And I just think like art is like this part that's kind of missing. I feel like academics are always like theorizing, like talking, like comparing to like past systemic issues and stuff. And then or like academics like wanting to write papers about it and stuff. Governments are like funding it and stuff like that. But I feel there's like this gap between like those more elite institutions and like Main Street, like everyday people in society. But even more importantly, the marginalized groups that we can already tell and that we're already talking about are going to continue to be marginalized, if not even more, by these new systems. Like, how do we reach them? Like, how do we empower people? Because again, this is still the AI ethics space is still a little bit, I see as a bit of a top-down approach. And I think like arts and culture have such a huge potential in this space. I just think when anything where like money is related or funding is related, it's like a lot of moving pieces. And again, because the industry is big and growing, I think it trickling down to the bottom to like actual artists and stuff. Just again, like a bit of a continued cycle of like, allowing or like artists to reach, everyday people. Even if it's like through entertainment and stuff, like that Noah Levinson example is like a very like high entertaining experience. And so I think like things like that can be really, really powerful, considering like this hyper digital world we're living in. It's like the message really needs to like penetrate through somehow, because AI is happening and like the consequences of AI are happening like right under our nose. And again, like with all things digital and virtual in the future, I don't know, the internet kind of has like culturally almost promised like a opportunity for like a future utopian vision or whatever, or at least an opportunity to level playing ground for folks that are marginalized or systemically excluded from a fair shot in society or ability to help themselves. So yeah, I guess my goal in sharing about AI today and AI ethics is to just share like how we're experiencing it on the daily, how it's related to already existing systems of ethics. If you care about like the world or your communities, about like what's right and wrong, about protecting vulnerable people, then this is definitely a topic that's not far, even though it feels and seems technical, it's really not far from the fighting that cause, trying to level the playing ground and empowering people to be agents of change for themselves and not be subjected to systems. So I just wanted to share like honestly everything that I kind of have put together over time, and just I know that like going forward in your digital lives, virtual lives, like we're gonna see more of this, and at least now you can kind of navigate the virtual and digital spaces with a bit more knowledge, insight, and yeah, that's kind of it.
Cool. That was all so awesome, and I feel like a little chat like this is kind of a perfect way to loop even more folks in on AI and what's happening, what's cool about it, what's very not cool about it. So thank you for putting this awesome presentation together, Heran. And depending on where this video ends up, if anybody has any questions, then totally just like feel free to eventually comment on it or shoot us an email or a DM, and we will forward it on to Heran, so she can keep on engaging with y'all about this.
Yes, and if you want to get involved in more community-related groups to these kinds of things, definitely have those networks. So it's just like a lot of different resources I have kind of scattered. So there's just more to offer, more, thorough learnings and opportunities and more people to connect with in this space. I'm like super happy to introduce and offer that to anyone that's interested, and also open to being challenged, and like being like, if you have anything else to share, also to hold the journey as well.
Cool.
Oh yeah.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heran. I'm gonna stop the stream now.
Okay.
But thank
Anyone?
you for watching.